The instrumental came immediately because it's Mirror in the Bathroom backwards.
Okay.
A DJ in Amsterdam whose gimmick it was play a single on the radio and then give you a cassette of it backwards to listen to in the car. And don't stop the Marmaduke, don't stop the marimba, Marmaduke. Don't stop the Marmaduke, don't stop the Marmaduke. That's Mirror in the Bathroom backwards. Rotating heads. Sing it, sing it, sing it.
Have you ever acted in films?
I haven't, no. I've always been a bit put off because most musicians make shit actors. Sting being the greatest example. The only one I thought who did alright was David Bowie.
Oh, yes.
He was an actor before he was a singer, so that's probably why. Most singers, we spend that much time pretending to be ourselves, exaggerating ourselves for the stage, that I don't think we're able to sublimate our personality very well into the character.
You've got to absorb, you've got to amplify beyond
yourself. Yes, that's right. You know, so I mean, like my favourite was John Hurt, and I wouldn't even know it was fucking John Hurt until halfway through the film. You know what I mean? You're just that good.
So you respect the craft of acting so much that
he'd sublimate himself. You're like, fuck me, it's John Hurt. Who get? You know, wow, look at it, he's done it again.
But you could be. I mean, like Absolute Beginners had tons of singers in it, you know, and they just kind of were there. It was the time period.
That was what, Julian Temple?
Yeah.
He did our videos. He did Doors of Your Heart. He did a lot of our videos early on. Julian, Doors of Your Heart was the best one, I think he did. But Sting acting, it's like any of them, you know, expect yo yo, and then back to the script. It's just being Sting, you know.
So you have to be.
They have to be Sting.
About being an artist. So how much? Like, we want to respect your time. Okay, so wow.
We need a hand clap.
Hand clap.
Just one.
The sound of one hand clapping again.
And this is pre. See, you're like the pub musician also. Like the sound, your music sounds way better after you've had a few.
I think so. I think probably most music does.
Okay.
The dance music certainly does, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Because it has a sort of riot of the blood involved. For me, when I was moving, I could think clearer. When I was dancing as a teenager to my favourite records, I could understand the lyrics better than when I sat still. Mm-hmm. You'd be dancing, I know what you mean now. It was weird. Now, afterwards, when I had a son who just could not sit still, I learned all about limbic intelligence. If you gave him a basketball, he'd be fine. It's sitting there to kill him. And that's what it was, I realised, for me. My interest in music and dance was my limbic intelligence. When my arms and my legs were moving, my brain was a bit clearer. I could see wider. And that's why I could see the lyrics in more bass relief.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, we're talking. This is Mike. We're watching Reelblack. We're with one of my favorites. I don't care if anybody watches this. I get to spend a few minutes with Dave Wakeling.
Right. Go off and do some good talking.
Right, but he's got a new album out. And before you go away, like, comment, subscribe. Tell us about the new album.
Fantastic new album. Here We Go, Love, it's called. And I don't know what the title means. It could be. Love could be the noun, or you could just be calling somebody love, might be giving them something, or you might just be talking to love in general. Love, what are you, love? Theatre, what are you, theatre? You know, 13 songs, there were meant to be 12, but all 13 came out great. We made a baker's dozen, thinking one of the cakes would drop, but nothing dropped. All 13 came out nicely, and so we decided to put them all on the record. And after a little while of putting them in different orders, they make up a nice story. Not a literal story, but it's a journey, Andy. It's an exciting start, and then a reflective middle, and then builds up, and then smooths you out and walk off into the distance holding hands.
I'm so glad you're here. And the album sounds as if it were number 4 if it had come out right after Special Beat Service almost.
That was a bit of a challenge. That was a bit of a challenge. It's all right calling it the English beat, but what would it sound like? Would it sound like the first record? Nope, probably not, because we made the second record. And we made the third record. There was a definite direction that was going. And then it moved into general public and Fine Young Cannibals. So you'd probably have to take that into account if that was the general direction.
Right.
And we sort of followed along with that. To a certain point, then we decided to just let the songs pick their own route, which is what we did in the first place with the other records. Let the song decide. What do you want? A trumpet? Okay, we'll get you a trumpet. So we let the song suggest what instrumentation they wanted. And it was nice because there wasn't 4 other people asking the song what it wanted. It was just me, so I could listen back to the answer. A French horn? No. A piccolo trumpet. A piccolo trumpet it is then. We got some great instruments. A euphonium.
Okay.
I didn't even know what one was. Fantastic. It's like a baby tuba. Lovely.
Now,
It sounds like New Orleans, a euphonium.
I'm not sure how much time we have. Let's connect the dots there because I, am a huge English beat general public fan.
Yep.
And I have some curiosities. Also, Phil, who's shooting, has some curiosities. What I didn't bring the whole collection, but this is definitely a
Whoppin'.
whopping. Now,
What's happening? Wagwan.
that's number 2 in the series.
The
correct?
number 2 in the series. Enjoying ourselves on the road as pop stars. First day of snow at Grand Canyon. A day in the sunshine in the south of France.
So Lake
Ritz.
Trochot.
Yes, and he ended up in hospital that night with the top of his feet burnt red, the size of 2 watermelons. It was terrific fun. Bob Sargent, the producer of the records, who was the executive producer on this one. We sent him the tapes every week and he sent us his comments back. That's me in those tunnels made of the mist. I don't look like it, but that's me being Marilyn Monroe in Made of the Mist right there. And Saxa, of course, ever present, ever gorgeous. Died last year.
Oh yes.
Still lives on.
Absolutely.
And this Wapen was a tidal wave of fame, a tsunami of fame that we know something's happened. All the water's rushed out and nobody can see it. We're having our picture taken. There's a huge tidal wave.
And this is like a Van Gogh kind of thing,
yes, that's
going
right,
like impressionistic.
Yeah, when you squint, you can see the wave coming right at you.
Now, see, I mean, we didn't. This is like right on before there was hip hop. We had integrated bands and influenced by Jamaican music as well as British.
Yes.
What were some of your influences when we started the English beat? What was the
Toots
style?
and the Maytals was my favourite of all the reggae bands. Toots and the Maytals, because I liked the rhythm section. It was simple and had holes and negative space, like zen. Ba-dum. I just really loved their rhythm section. And my idea for the beat, we all had our own ideas. My idea for the beat was Toots and the Maytals jamming with the Velvet Underground. So you've got those 2 rhythm sections, one jug, 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 and one.
Right.
So one skipping and full of life, and one full of angst and industrial pressure. And that's what I wanted. So it was the sound of the city, but with the spark and the life of reggae. Not that reggae was happy music. Yeah, it does have a happy feel, but it was survival music. Seemed to me, it was more a sense of nobility than a sense of happiness. The joy came out of needing to survive. It was music. It sounded to me music instead of dinner sometimes, not music for after dinner. And because of that, it had a nobility about human experience that would give you the strength to carry on when you didn't really want to.
Right. No, I mean, speak to the influence of Jamaican music and ska at the time of the 78, 79, when the beat was
It's
first
very
started.
confusing, really, because you've got loads of skinheads watching football games, listening to Trojan volumes 1 through 4 of the ska singles of the late 60s and early 70s. But you had some skinheads who were starting to turn quite racist as well. They were being recruited by organisations like the British Movement, the National Front, Column 88, various right-wing groups that were becoming attracted to disenfranchised white kids who'd got no jobs, and the old, it must be the immigrants then. Oh, it must be the immigrants.
Yeah, there's a famous speech, I forget the politician's name, I was just watching it recently, in the early 70s, this guy, he brought up a huge storm in England.
Enoch Powell.
Exactly.
The Rivers of Blood speech at the Midlands Hotel in Birmingham. My cousin, Jackie Fielding, is a keen family historian, and dug up out of a newspaper from Smethwick, Birmingham, Enoch Powell's arranging for his first election, and his election agent was either my father or my grandfather, because it's right there. Enoch Powell's agent, Mr. F.D. Wakeling.
Wow.
And they're both Frederick Dennis Wakeling, so we don't know whether it was my dad or my granddad.
Right.
Who was Enoch Powell's agent.
But it was in the 70s in England, it's like the decline of the empire.
That's right.
And a lot of people squatting and, you know.
He said that it would end up as rivers of blood in the streets of England. Well, oddly enough, they've done about everything they can to assure that that's the case, really. If you'd have taken that as a serious warning at the time, then you would have thought that you'd have done quite a lot towards integrating people so as they could understand each other and coexist. But quite the opposite has been done, so as that people are terrified of Muslims in England now, and the Muslims kind of keep themselves to themselves because they're not liked. So they've actually set it up for the Rivers of Blood thing, I think, on purpose. And it could have been avoided, but people were not brought into England as welcome guests. They were brought in as cheap labour and shut up. So there was no real intent to integrate. In fact, the intent was to keep people separate, so as they could be worked against each other.
Right.
Right,
so a song like Police and Thieves might have a whole different meaning for a black immigrant to England than it would to a young teenage white kid.
Yes, well, that's a very interesting point, yes. Now, of course, with each subsequent wave of people in, everybody takes a step up the ladder. So now, Jim-English or English Caribbean people, they seem to have quite good status in England at the moment, only because white people have found somebody else to hate more.
Right, which are the Muslims.
And now it's Muslims, Muzzies, or anybody who looks anything like that. So now Jim-English people, they're one of us to these folks, which is kind of weird. And I remember when I worked on the building site, again in the early 70s, and my Irish foreman said to me, he says, "Jesus, Dave," he says, "I love the darkies. I love them." I'm like, "What?" She didn't hear that very often. "You do? Really? Why is that?" And he said, "Oh," he said, "when I first got here," he said, "they'd cross the street if they saw me coming." He says, "Now the darkies are here," he says, "all you English are, 'Good morning, Mr. Murphy, how are you?'" He says, "Oh, Jesus, I'm one of you now, am I?"
Well, that's my last name's Dennis. I have Irish blood.
There you go.
So we were all treated the same. Irish and blacks treated the same in the United States. So I'm glad you brought up Bob Sargent. Now the new album, it just seems very fitting that it would come out in 2018. We're in the midst of a similar political climate in the United States as you had in the Thatcher days.
It is really odd. It's almost as if those issues that came up to a head in the late 70s and the early 80s, they weren't really dealt with. It wasn't really resolved. They kind of sorted it, fudged it over, and moved on. And now all those things are back. All those things are back, you know. Oh, it's the Russians. Oh, no, we might have a nuclear war. Oh, no, unemployment. Oh, no, it's impossible to do healthcare. It's impossible to do education. Oh, no.
Right.
It's the immigrants. Oh, no.
Right. Yeah.
Well, between 1890 and 1910, the height of the Victorian Empire, we'd only just lost America, but England owned most everything else still. Canada, Australia, most of Africa, India, a lot. There were 20 Wakeling babies born, and 10 of them died in the first year. It's kind of convenient because you didn't have to have an autopsy if the baby died within the first year.
Right.
So I asked the guy who did the family tree what they die of then. He says, well, you know, malnutrition, no healthcare whatsoever. He said, and unfortunately, he said, as a form of birth control was, if there was no food for the kids that was alive, Mom would tell Dad in the middle of the night, it's time to go and visit the baby. And they put a pillow over its head. A cot death. Didn't have to feed it in the morning. So half of my relatives, when England owned the world, half of them died. Guess what? There was no immigrants in England then, was there? None. So who caused that then? Same people who causing it now. Nothing to do with immigrants.
Well, that was the whole punk rebellion.
Yes, and there's some disappointment.
was against the entire system.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily placing blame, but you're saying the Enoch Powell's, it allowed that anger and that hate to manifest into a collective pool of people that were targeted. But then the message here. Well, on the new album, If Killing Was Wrong, if you want to talk about that song.
If killing worked, it would have worked by now. We've spent 30,000 years killing each other's children in the name of peace, and it doesn't seem to be that peaceful for it. So what about try to kill less children than you did last week, just as a general theme? What if we did a week of try not to kill any children this week? Or if you're used to killing a lot of children every week, try and cut down like the cigarettes, just kill a few less. And you never know what might come up out of that opportunity. At the moment, it's just a race to sell arms, isn't it? And whoever's the most bloodthirsty with killing other people's kids, they're the ones you want to sell the arms to. So it seems as though most atrocities now around the world, you've got to pick through the debris and find out it was British and American weapons again. And it doesn't seem to work. So you could imagine a time when you didn't have to kill each other's children. I mean, it's disgraceful, really. I mean, it's utterly disgraceful. We should be ashamed of ourselves, and I don't think being mammals is a good enough excuse at this point. We know better.
Well, I'll take you back on one. I mean, these are all, I need these signed. Got it. By the way, I'm going to bring some more into the. So what this moment?
The US Festival.
That, I mean, 80, 82 and 83.
82, 83, yep.
And it was Steve Wozniak, I think.
Steve Wozniak, and he had a sofa like this on the side of the stage with a coffee table and a lamp and an armchair. So what's that for then? Oh, Steve wants to sit and show his mum his favourite groups. As we were playing,
off to the side
there's Steve Wozniak and his mom on the side of the stage.
One of the founders of Apple
Yes.
created a music festival and where'd the money go besides out of my pocket? Like
David Steele shuffled over to me during our version of Too Nice to Talk To from that afternoon, and I mean, very clever. He'd worked out in the first half of the song that we were actually being paid more for the live version that we were playing right there than the song had made in royalties around the world since its release. We were being paid more to perform it in that 3 minutes. Now it's quite a difficult bass line. And he worked that out. the math.
Oh
was
wait, now
playing
are you implying that you got paid more to do a charity show than the record industry?
It wasn't a charity show. The
I thought
Festival.
I thought the S Festival was like a We Are the World kind of thing. It was just to
Hell
bring.
no, it was fortunes. Got paid like the Clash. We're going to get paid $500,000, and they held up proceedings because some of the dinosaur rock bands were getting $1 million, and they said, we're the future of rock. We should get $1 million, and they didn't go on stage till they did.
Wow.
So they did.
Is
We
that-
got $250,000. We did.
Oh, well, I'm not mad at you.
You know,
So-
I don't know how much I saw of it. Probably not that much by the time the Sharks had finished thrashing around.
So
in the
is the music industry better now? I mean, you Go Feet was your label, correct?
Go Feet was our label. It was more like a boutique label, you know, to separate us from the major label.
Okay.
But we would sign it to Arista or IRS Records. It was like a bulwark. So we had a record label we could hide behind to sort of fight against the other record label pushing us. But it was a boutique label. It wasn't independent, you know.
But did you own your copyrights? You owned your masters. You were head of.
Well, they were licensed so that we knew that they would return. You know, we always sign them. And now, just as we talk, we're doing a new deal for all of the masters and the publishing also.
So that means hurry up and get this before it's completely gone. It's got the DVD and everything. It's one of the best live CDs out there.
I really liked it. We couldn't find a photograph that we liked with everybody in it, so we ended up having to do one where
The
separate
composite.
shots, you know. But to start with, there was some complaints about my shirt, which at the time, the pink and grey Hawaiian shirt was very, very fashionable
Okay.
at the time. And then for a little while afterwards, it wasn't that fashionable, but now it's back in. So I was...
It's
surprised,
always back
you know.
in. Now there's a great ballad on the new album, Dead.
Never die.
Never
we
die.
said we would never die. Well, what did we know? It's about loss. It's about grief. It's about a couple of people's deaths, really, or a few people's deaths, and also a close call. My eldest son was hit by a car and unconscious for many months in an ICU. And some of the song is the pulse of the ICU, the warmth and the sounds of the assisted breathing, and it starts to make an orchestration there. It's kind of scary and comforting at the same time. And it was about meeting a friend a few years ago that I hadn't seen since the middle 80s. And had been part of a circuit of people, photographers, stylists, choreographers, very artistic set of people, and then they were all dying of AIDS. And we were going, it was like, you going to the funeral this Saturday? And the conversation, which was just a few years ago, was that we'd stopped going to funerals after about 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Nobody could handle any more funerals. It was hard enough. Kept thinking, well, there, but for the grace of God, you know, how come that's not me in the box anyway? And everybody sort of stopped going to the funerals after a while. And we met again and discussed that. And that was part of the song as well, that memory of it. A sense of loss, a sense of grief, and a sense of warmth that comes from that. But it takes a bit of a while to get there. And at the end of the song, the soul's leaving the body, piccolo trumpet. It's the transmigration of souls. And there's something joyous about it at the end. I'm not quite sure how or why, but it is. It's triumphant. And there's a sort of resolve.
So you're. It sounds like when you hear music, you see things, or you're tuned in differently.
Yeah. Yes,
Like
I do.
so, you're painting a picture for us.
Yeah,
with the
that's
music.
it, yeah.
I mean, did these songs exist for a long period of time? I mean, it's been a while since you've released music.
Some of them did. Some of them did, and some of them were just hobby songs that I didn't even bother finish writing them. You know, I wasn't sure whether I'd make this album at all. I had thought that these songs might just stay my own personal collection, you know. But then I started putting some songs in the set. First in the sound check, just to make it interesting for us. Then put it in the set just to make the band a bit scared. Ooh, new one. And then people started asking for them. I'd like the CD with that new song on it. So all of a sudden we were like, oh, we better make it one then. And that was where Pledge Music came in, and we raised the funds about 4 years ago and started recording it about 3 years ago and finished it last year.
This, we were talking about in the car, this is one of my prized possessions. You don't know how hard it was for me to find a copy
Oh, really?
of this. Yeah,
What is it?
This is the 12-inch of Jeanette,
Aha.
backed at 45
I can guess.
RPM, backed with the instrumental of March of the
Oh,
Swivelheads.
lovely. The
Yeah.
Ferris Bueller version.
Yeah, this is the Ferris Bueller March of the Swivelheads 12-inch. So, I mean, you know, and a lot of people remember, if anything, they know English Beat from
It's
that
got
film.
used so many times now, and now that scene from Ferris Bueller gets people do versions of it. It's been in The Simpsons, and just even recently they do a retake of it, if you will, in the Spider-Man movie. And every time they do a remake or retake of it, they have to use our song,
You get a
which
little
is
check.
terrific.
Well, I mean, you talk about all the instrumentation. I mean, it's just saxophones and anything that you and Bob, any recollections about the making of this particular record and how the
There's
and how the-
tablas and congas on it, which David Steele had got a thing about tablas and congas at the time, and so it would be nice. It would sound like a conga pattern, but it was tabla, and it hadn't really got used that much on English pop music at the time. It sounds really good, and we used the opportunity to like have people come in to play these instruments that were really great, so we could watch them do it. You know, and it's like with tabla, there's like 20 different places where you can hit. You know, with the sides, and so we had him like show us all that first.
So the instrumental came first, and then you found lyrics for it, or it just kind of happens.
No, let's see.
I know it's going back 30 years.
The instrumental came immediately because it's Mirror in the Bathroom backwards.
Okay.
A DJ in Amsterdam, whose gimmick it was play a single on the radio and then give you a cassette of it backwards to listen to in the car. And don't stop the Marmaduke, don't stop the marimba, Marmaduke. Don't stop the Marmaduke, don't stop the Marmaduke. That's Mirror in the Bathroom backwards. Rotating heads. And we had two security guards. We were big pop stars in England at the time. And it turned out they'd both worked for Mrs. Thatcher. When she was Prime Minister, they were armed police guards for Mrs. Thatcher. So, of course, to start with, nobody had talked to them. They were up the front of the bus by themselves. And I felt sorry for them, so I went and talked to them. And I ended up squeezing lots of different slang out of them.
Okay.
So, friends in high places were snipers. One swollen ankle was a holster. The ankle, so he'd bend down to shoot. We nicked lots of their phrases and put them in the song.
I didn't know this was going to turn into an episode of Genius.com.
Yeah.
Beyond Ferris Bueller, I never knew all this, so I appreciate that. That's awesome. And I guess Jeanette's on the other side. So this is from the last album, right? Special Beat Service. Up until now, Special Beat Service. So what led to the split? You guys split a stock. You went from the Beat to General Public.
Well, David and Andy wanted a couple. Well, David really wanted a couple of years off. We know all this in retrospect. We kind of knew it at the time, but it makes more sense after the dust had settled. David was sick of being in a group and wanted a break. He wanted to walk to the shops instead of drive down around town in a tour bus. He was worried that we'd be writing songs about barreling down Rock and Roll Boulevard. He was only young. He was only 18 when he joined the Beat, and he wanted to just live for a minute and not be in a group. And me and Roger had just started families, and we couldn't afford that, being socialists. So they had a couple of years off. Me and Roger started General Public, and 2 or 3 years later, Fine Young Cannibals came.
This is the first General Public or the second?
This is the first one.
Okay. Yeah. All the Rage, which has Tenderness, right?
All the Rage, Tenderness, yeah. And also a schematic of the H Block prison camp in Northern Ireland. So you'd have
Moscow to Monterey.
Four main cells, and you could guard all 4 cells with just 2 or 3 guards in each of these positions. And this was how they.
Wait, so is there like some subliminal in Tenderness that I'm missing?
No, but from H Block, from Springbok to H Block, it says there.
Right.
From H Block to Springbok.
And great graphic design here.
Yeah.
I mean, even the English Beat logo. I mean, you're so far ahead of your time in terms of the logos.
H Block as the Irish prison camps, and Springbok, South African freedom fighters. They trimmed the photographs because that was a gun belt, which they thought was a bit too much.
Okay.
And they also stuck this over because I'd got a wedding ring on. They thought that might be bad for business, so they stuck that on.
Were you the sex symbol? I'm a dude. I never like.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. Totally. In fact, I got a lot of jokes about this. That if I had that much makeup in one of the Irish prison camps, there was a definite job for me, back in the barrel for me there. And
fun making that one.
Yes. Peter Asher photographs. The chap that did the very famous photograph of the Eurythmics.
Gotcha. And is Bob Sargent on this one too? Or?
No, he didn't produce that one.
Okay.
Gavin McKillop produced that one, young Scottish chap.
All right, so we're learning a lot, and then I also have a 12-inch here of Faults and All, which is from the second General Public.
Yeah, lyrics written, quite a lot of the lyrics written by Horace Panter, the bass player. Faults and All, which got changed, of course, afterwards to I love you farts and all, I love your farts, they make you more like you.
Okay.
It's hard to get that out of your mind once you've heard that.
Okay, and we're getting flagged. So last thing, she's having a baby, John Hughes, once
Yes.
again. Any stories on that?
Yes, me and John Hughes were having our babies at the same time as Roger. And we discussed how it changed things, it made things different. We wrote lyrics to the song like a postal chess thing, sending them between America and England, Chicago and Birmingham. And he would write some lyrics and send the piece of paper back, and I wrote some more and sent it back to Chicago. And I wish we had that piece of paper now, but we don't. And it was us, me and John, exploring what it was like to become a dad. You love your kids like you miss your wife, you know. All change, she's having a baby. And it was interesting to write a song about something that was going on in your life with a filmmaker, that it was going on in his life too, and then watch the ideas from that get into the script, and to see Kevin Bacon and Elizabeth talking about stuff that me and John Hughes had talked about.
So John Hughes, clearly one of my inspirations. I felt like he's a genius.
Yes, me too.
Personality-wise, and he
was a lovely fellow to spend time with. I got to spend time with him at his home. He had a record collection that filled a whole wall, and he had them in there on his own plan of how the 80s fit together. It wasn't alphabetical. And he made me play the game. Go on, pick, give us a psychedelic first. Easy. I'm
bang, like he's the
all
record clerk.
All right, and Echo and the Bunnymen. Easy. And I didn't catch him out. And he knew exactly where the records were, and it wasn't alphabetical. It was how the music fitted together in his mind. Wow. Which was quite good.
We need more people like that not say better music. I don't say good or bad, but that certainly was a time when you had an artist like a John Hughes who was really tuned into what young people are listening to and was putting it into theaters for us.
Lucky though, he didn't have all the video games to compete with. So all of those young people were listening to that music. That was their watering hole. So he only had to go to that watering hole and give them pictures to look at whilst they were listening to that music anyway. You'd have a harder job now because they're all playing a game, aren't they?
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly. Well, I appreciate you. If I can get your
I would
signature,
love
and then
this.
we'll do a tag, and then we'll be out of there. We'll watch you perform. That one's already unshrinked. I really appreciate your time. Thank you. I mean,
My pleasure. Interesting set of questions, bit different.
well, we try. We try to do it like as a conversation.
Yes.
And
That's better. 'Cause
I think
it can
we sold a
move,
few
can't it?
records, or at least got people on track. And I guess the fringe benefit of having a little TV shows, I get to hang out with my heroes, man. So
Is it fun having a TV show? But it's a bit of a responsibility, isn't it?
well, you talk about like the way you see art. I mean, because of people like you, I always have a integrity, So for me, the fringe benefit is every morning I get to wake up and pretty much do what I want to do.
Right. That part of it's good, isn't it? I mean, it's an interesting balance nowadays, the commercial art part of it, but I think it's always been there, hasn't it? It's,
Yeah.
how do you...
But I think if I'd grown up 10 years later, there might have been more pressure, like I need to sell records, I need to do
Yes.
this, or I need to, like money would be the primary interest as opposed to, like you said, not having the visuals. Like if English Beat, there weren't that many videos floating around
No.
on English Beat. So I got the information from the record and it informs me in that way.
There was that, hot and cold mediums. So when you heard your favourite song in the 60s, you had to make your own video.
Right.
I got a video of Downtown by Petula Clark that you couldn't show on television. And you could allow your imagination to go. And then it was a little bit sad with MTV because all of a sudden you'd got a multi-million dollar business of 45-year-olds trying to guess what 14-year-olds would be offended by. Because 14-year-olds aren't offended by anything, but 45-year-olds are offended by most everything.
Right.
And so you ended up being able to spend as much money as your dad had spent on his house his entire life
Right.
to make a video that could say next to nothing. And that was really sad. So
Right.
we ended up then, once it got like that, we said, we'll just mainly do performance videos, because at least that's credible. That's
Right.
what we do. And we play the guitar and we sing.
That was my first exposure to English Beat, was
Yeah.
on the Beast of IRS video VHS with I Confess. I think there are 2 music videos from the Beat on there. But it's such a beautiful song. I was like, who are these people? Such a lovely voice. But then that's all you got. If you got the album, there were like 10 other songs that
Right.
you had to use your own imagination
That's
to.
right.
But now, Beyonce, she'll drop the whole video and the album. So there's no imagination there, and then everybody's got to react to it immediately. You don't live with it. I mean, Philip and I, we're big Beat fans and never knew it until 20 years later.
Right.
So we don't have the same experience, but it's the same connection, So
Well, it's all going to come to play in the next few years. I'm not sure how long we've got, but all these little bits of art, all these little bits of compassion that have been developed, they're all going to be tested these next few years. And I don't know how it's going to end up, but it's. We talked before about the punk revolution. I think there's some people my age a little bit embarrassed, really, that the hippie revolution, the punk revolution, we were all so clever, and we're going to do things so much better than our parents, and it looks like a bit of a mess. And that's going to take a little bit of sorting out, I think.
I think so, but I think, from my perspective, the people that watch our channel, because all the information's available to everyone.
Yep.
There's a lot of distraction, but there are a lot of people that are really curious to see, wow, we've been at the same time and
Yes,
place
we have.
before, and how have we dealt with it? So a lot of our viewers are interested in like the 60s and 70s,
Yep.
the Black power revolution and
Yes.
National Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. But I'm saying it's great to talk to you because it's the same, like, if we're talking about ends of empires, America's
Yes.
certainly at that point now, and,
That's
and
right.
I think the music...
Just like Britain's end of empire period, America's going through it now. They say empires travel west, and it does. I do see some of that happening.
So I think it's a full circle thing. I mean, I think it's we all hands have to be on deck, but I think it's great that we have the ability to have
America has made a
conversations.
tremendous difference and has given lots of people lots of different opportunities. And just since I've lived in America, since 1986 or something like that, it has changed a lot over the country, everywhere. Nobody looks at the floor when you walk past them anymore. That's nice, eh? And they did in the 80s, they still did. They don't have to do that now. And nightclubs that you could go into in the South that looked like the Nuremberg Rally, it looks like a Benetton advert now. And nobody notices, and
Right.
everybody's fine with it. And it's just, and that's nice to see, that's nice to see.
Yeah.
It's been a very interesting watching the development in America, multiculturalism. People, it's odd because on the news, all you get to hear really about is the violence and the ways that people don't get on with each
Right.
other. But the vast majority of the time, I would say, from my experience, and I'm lucky I get to visit most major cities 2 or 3 times a year, and I'm in the city centre late at night.
Right.
I get to see a flavour of America, and people get on way better than they ever did. Way better than they ever did. And my children now, in their 20s, I watch them with great interest. They're black. And watching them with all their friends, with white friends, Persian friends, I had a lot of Persian friends. And they didn't use the colour of somebody as the first way of describing them. You know, that guy with they'd use all sorts of different things. Whereas my parents' generation, they used to tell you about people of other colour as a warning. Now, you watch them lot, you know. Then we kind of swung the other way. Oh, have you met my friend from Ghana? Have you got a friend from Ghana? No, I wish I did, you know. We kind of swung the other way.
Right.
And now, my children do seem to be in a post-racial society. That it's not the first thing that they use to describe somebody. It's almost like the contents of their heart is more important than the colour of the skin. It's just like what people were saying was going to happen.
Right.
And it kind of is.
Well, I feel that a lot of that's true, but then you're still faced with the day-to-day injustices.
Of course,
and,
absolutely.
And you see them now because everybody has a phone and
Yes,
it's captured,
that's right.
and you
Yes,
know.
you do.
But I think it's just the energy of hate. It's very easy to get people together to be against something than
It's
it is
going to
to
take a minute, isn't it? I've noticed like things are changing in the South, and things are changing once people's parents have died, and then people can speak up. But they're not going to speak up and say that their parents were racists. They're not going to say that their grandparents were racists. But they're going to let it pass, and then they'll change a little bit.
Right.
But they can't, for family reasons, they can't
I understand.
go against their descendants. That's just the way things were, Dave.
Yeah. I understand.
We did say it, but we didn't mean nothing by it. You know, so yeah.
But I want, what I hope happens is that more energy comes into the art that is not that's more a melange, you know, like people.
I think it is. I think it is. You know, when I watch my kids' generation, they've got past it a bit now, which is great, and their kids will be even more so. It's going to be down to the content of your character, which is terrific.
Fingers crossed. I mean, I know you got to go, but my feeling overall is that the fact that we have more choices within the media, mass media and social media, we can pretty much tune into the exact frequency that we feel comfortable with. Whereas in the past, we all had to look at the same 3 networks or whatever and get our information. And MTV was fantastic because in the 80s, we got to see every type of music was
Yes.
being marketed to us. Now, it's more things you choose from, but it's sort of, it really segregates itself.
You have to be careful with that, don't
Yeah.
you? You get more choices, but those choices can be segregated.
Well, people,
So,
they want
yes.
to listen to what they see as the image that looks like them, whereas
Here's
in
a
the
funny
past-
one.
Yeah.
Radio 1 and Top of the Pops in England. We'd only got one radio station. With no money for any other ones. That was all there was. So you had the Rolling Stones, followed by the Four Tops, followed by the Kinks,
Exactly.
followed by Diana Ross. And nobody knew they were meant to be on separate channels because they weren't. So
Yes.
we grew up thinking that it was okay.
Right.
And of course it was.
Of course it was.
It wasn't until we came to America that we found that music was separated.
Right.
We didn't know that in England growing up, so I was kind of glad of that.
Yeah. Well, big thing, Martin Luther King, that divided the whole radio and black music, separated Stax
Right.
Records and all that
Yeah.
stuff. But what's great, when I discover the music that you're inspired, and it's by the 60s music, you fused into what you did.
Yes.
It's like I heard all of Motown again, and I heard
Yes.
all of Stax again, but I also discovered Jamaican music, and I discovered what British punk was about. So, and it was very
I think that was
palatable.
part of it for us, was mixing it up.
Yeah.
Mixing it up and making our own special brew
Yeah.
that could invite everybody in.
Yeah, so I love you for
and
that.
a dance music that anybody could dance to, even me.
I love you for that. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
This is over. We're over time, but
Thank you,
we
lovely cameras.
love you so much. Get the record. You know.
If I had one, I'd show you. Here We Go, Love, it's called, and it's just terrific.
Boston! Boston! Boston!
Everybody loses, everyone they've ever loved. Sadly, we all have to fade and die. But it's not about the faces or the memories that are gone. Across my heart, here's the reason why. The love you give lasts forever, even when you're gone. The love you give lasts forever, with tears you shed down there. The love you give lasts forever. The love you give can bring us together. The love you give lasts forever, with tears you shed down there. Now from the start, right from the heart, you knew it all along. By the games in the moment, we decide as wrong. There's too much to carry on these days. For it's all the great unknown, with all distractions gone, we will find the real sin in every way. Why? Because the love you give lasts forever, even when you're gone. The love you give lasts forever, with tears you sat down there. The love you give lasts forever. The love you give can bring us together. The love you give lasts forever, with tears you sat down there. Now from the start, right from the heart, you knew it all along. So come on. The love you give lasts forever. Yeah, da, 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 da. The love you give lasts forever. The love you give lasts forever. The love you give can bring us together. The love you give lasts forever. With tears and love. Now from the start, right from the heart, we knew it all along. Forever. The love you give lasts forever. The love you give lasts forever. The love you give lasts forever. The love you give can bring us together. The love you give lasts forever. Come on, listen and love. And from the start, right from the heart, we knew it